You're listening to Ask the Mayor on this Thursday with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan in post-election mode here after Tuesday. Of course, you didn't have to run this time.
I didn't. It's a little easier for me, and I know it's always a long night for you.
Yeah, it was a little long. We didn't get much sleep between Tuesday night and early Wednesday, but still recovering from that a little bit. We'll talk about that just a little bit. I did want to start out with, we got not really a question, but kind of a statement from a caller. This morning was about, they said last summer, listener called the city inspector, or I guess it would be the community development department now, about 3 corners that have blind or difficult views. They said one of them has recently been cleaned up at 13th and Lincoln, but there's a couple others at 9th and Arthur and 13th and Arthur where there is maybe a difficulty with view for motorists, things like tall grass, trees, and brush. There's no question here on the statement, but how are those usually handled when somebody calls in with a complaint?
The community development director or somebody from his office will actually go out and look. They'll take a look at the situation. They'll try to work with folks. I mean, the bottom line is if it's on the city right-of-way that we have, 35 or 40 feet of that, then it's a little easier to take some action and work with the homeowner. If it's in their yard, it's one of those things we have to take another look at and try to work with the homeowners. But as far as those 2 locations, I will, again, pass those on to community development and have them drive by and take another look to see what can be done, if anything.
Let's say you have a tree and it's actually on the property owner's property, but not the right-of-way, but it hangs over the right-of-way. That's kind of a gray area there. I guess it's kind of a thing where you have to get in cooperation with the property owner to do something about it.
You do. You have to get some cooperation. And again, it's really not undifferent than if the tree's almost on the property line and it goes over. The neighbors can talk things out and get things done. It's always better, and so that's how we try to handle it as well. Again, we always try to handle things at the lowest level and try to work, as reasonably as we can to get an issue solved.
It might be an encroachment to one person. It might be an inconvenience to another. It kind of depends on the situation, I suppose.
That's exactly right. That's what makes it a little harder to figure out. Is it an obstruction? Is it an inconvenience? And we'll take a look at that.
All right. Thoughts on the primary election, city council races? Anything stand out for you? Surprised by anything, or not really?
No, not really. I think at the end of the day, I think from the primary perspective, it was first of all. I want to thank the people that did run, unopposed or opposed. I think first of all, second of all, that's really how you make some commitment to the community. And so I want to thank, one person from the 3rd Ward and one person from the 1st Ward who did not make it on to the primaries. At least they stepped up and put their name on the ballot and ran. And I think that's something that we need to be they need to be commended for. And secondly, I think we need to encourage more people during the time to run to step up to the plate.
Yeah. Both races in the 1st and the 3rd wards are pretty close, as far as the candidates, the 2 candidates that will move on in each. You do have kind of the unusual situation where you have 2 candidates that are on the council in different wards now are competing for the same ward seat. We do.
Councilman Barnard is moving at the toward November, moving to the 1st Ward, and Councilman Fralin is in the 1st Ward, and both of their terms are up, and so he had to file in the 1st Ward and lift his spot open to be, it was run unopposed, I guess. That always creates an interesting dynamic.
Then you have a 4th Ward candidate who is unopposed in May, who will be taking over the 4th Ward candidate who is moving.
Correct. Correct.
It's all a little confusing here.
It is. It's a really interesting dynamic, but, I guess the other thing that I really want to say is thank you for anybody who voted or got out to vote in the primary election, because, again, that's one of those rights that we have is to vote. As we were talking, I can remember, turning 18 and being able to vote in 1976 in the first for me, it was a presidential year, and so I remember voting right as a young 18-year-old going down to the voting booth and voting. And, of course, in those days, that's about the only way you could vote. To get an absentee ballot was really difficult.
Yeah, yeah. don't want to belabor it, but I thought I'd bring it up to give you an opportunity to respond. Yesterday at a county board meeting, there was a comment made during the public comment section that alleged, and I don't want to get into the candidate per candidate back and forth, whatever that is, but there was a comment that alluded to the fact, or not the fact, but the supposition that the city does things wrong or below board or illegally, or any type of response on that?
Well, certainly everybody has their own opinion.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I'm very transparent, and I can tell you that one of the things I believe is to do things morally right, and I believe, during my term as mayor, that has been one of the things that I have always lived up to and will continue to live up to.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
See what goes on. And may the best person win in November, whoever that might be.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, again, I just want to thank the people that did run, whether they won or whether they didn't. Mm-hmm. It's part of the democracy of the United States, and we all have our opinions. Yeah.
And there were a lot of contested races, more so than usual in the primary. We usually don't see that. We'll see automatic advancement of candidates lots of times. But
I think, I'm not sure, but I think from the county perspective, there was a number of people that ran even more than the city council side. Mm-hmm. But again, in 2 years, we will be doing this all over again. So people want to maybe kind of just watch and think about, maybe I should step up and run for one of the wards.
That's a good thing. It repeats itself. Or, well, maybe the bad thing is some people, it depends on your viewpoint, I guess.
That is true.
Yeah. Another action yesterday on at the county level, they approved their 911 agreement with the city of Beatrice for Emergency Dispatch Center 911 service for I think a 4-year period now, at no increase in price.
Correct.
Was there any reluctance by the city not to build in, maybe an inflation adjustment or something on that, or how did you see that?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things you always look at, and you look at what it costs to run the 911 center. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I think we've got enough fixed costs and variable costs covered in the agreement, and again, when you're working with Gage County and the city is in Gage County, I think we try to make sure that we do the right thing for both the city and the county. Mm-hmm. I know we still dispatch for Crete, and I know, again, we try to be fair with them as well, and so it's one of those things that across the board. I think it's fair. And I also think that one of the things we have to remember is that our 911 center does an excellent job. Mm-hmm. And it's manned, staffed 24 hours a day with very high quality people. And that just takes some time, energy, and money.
And a lot of agencies are covered in Gage County on that. You mentioned the ones outside too, but It's amazing how many agencies in the county too that have service from that. If everybody had to do theirs separately, have a dispatch center, what would that be like?
Well, trying to manage our staff at 24 hours a day would be, first of all, expensive. Mm-hmm. And second of all, if you had everybody trying to, dispatch themselves, there's going to be a lot of lack of communication. Mm-hmm. And I can see a lot of errors happening, or, getting to the call at the wrong place or the wrong people. So, this is a pretty, I would say, efficient and safeguarded way to have our 911 communication.
Regionalization isn't new either. There's other parts of the state that do this, and
that is correct. Yeah. There is,
by necessity, I think, for cost reasons and coverage.
Correct, and I do believe in a county you can only have one 911 you can have other dispatchers, but you only have one 911 service.
Is that called like a PSAT or something like that?
Something like that.
I can't remember. I remember former Chief Lang was talking about that at one time, and I think that has something to do with it. You're limited in the number of...
You are, and I think that also is to help the coordination of everything.
All right. We're speaking with Mayor Bob Morgan on Ask the Mayor today, and we'll have more coming up in just a moment. You're listening to Ask the Mayor today on our second segment here with Mayor Bob Morgan today. Talk about some things coming up. Not too long, the water park will be opening Memorial Day weekend, I believe.
That is correct. Yeah, we've had some nice days. We just hope we get a little bit, warmer, and it's going to be, again, a fun summer for the kids to swim.
Now, rates will go up just a little bit this year, and reason for that was what, basically?
Well, it's like everybody else. We have to pay our lifeguards more to attract people for that. So when, labor goes up, the fee went up nominally. It's not real expensive, but at the end of the day, we did have to raise our rates just a little bit.
Changes in the minimum wage have sort of dictated a lot of that, I think.
They have.
Places.
They have everywhere. I mean, it's just not,
Yeah.
it's restaurants, and it's a lot of places that, that's going to, when you put that in place, you just need to be prepared that somehow the service that's being provided has to recoup that cost.
Mechanically, structurally, pool in pretty good shape. Heard anything from Mark Pethod, the Public Properties Director?
I have not. I anticipate that, again, it's in pretty good shape. It's been there for a number of years.
24, 25?
It's hard for a lot of people to believe that it's been there that long. And, I think it's in good shape. I do think, the life expectancy of swimming pools are somewhere between that 25 and 30 years. So I would imagine down the road there'll have to be some calculations of what do you do and how do you keep it current. But right now it's up and running and going to be in good shape.
You see discussions about that issue being revived here in the near term?
I don't see it in the near term, no.
Okay.
I really don't.
Okay, all right. Noted on your city's Facebook page, the splash pad is on, and boy, last year was kind of a challenging thing. What with equipment going bad and waiting for delivery of it, and then all of a sudden the summer's kind of gone, and I don't know. It was kind of a rough one there.
That was a rough one, but it's up and running and it's in good shape. I also want to thank the Sertoma Club. I understand they have a fundraiser going to replace the playground equipment at Astro Park, and so we want to thank them for their help as they start their fundraiser drive for playground equipment. And that's changed a lot too. In my day, you didn't really worry about what was underneath the playground equipment, but now for not only ADA requirements but safety requirements, it's pretty expensive to put in a playground because everything needs to be up to certain standards, which is good because it creates safety and it also creates inclusion. And so those are both good things, but they do come with a price.
Yeah, we grew up in the era of metal swing sets and metal bars and, merry-go-rounds that spun around and you get your foot trapped underneath, and you can't do any of that stuff now.
No.
Seems like,
So it's amazing we survived.
Yeah, I know. We're still here somehow, but it's all plastic and padded surfaces or, soft surfaces, and it's just become the common thing. But it is more expensive.
Unfortunately, that does raise the price.
Yeah. The Astro Park, too, really is a nice, the way it's situated in a big residential area there, it is a nice neighborhood park for kids.
It is.
And adults, for that matter.
It is. It's a nice park there. I think across the city we have a number of those neighborhood parks that really add to, I would say, the quality of life of Beatrice, and I think that's a good thing.
Just because of their size, Riverside and Chautauqua get a lot of attention, and Hannibal, too, for that matter, but those little parks are important, too.
They are, and I think as we continue to look at any type of development, I think neighborhood parks are always going to be something that we have to consider putting in, and because it just adds to that touch of the neighborhood.
A lot of ball leagues and ball tournaments. We're on that cusp of spring, summer. It's already underway, but it'll really get underway here as school winds down here. Maybe just quick update on anything. I know you've had some big projects going on at Hannibal Park, but other parks and things, any changes going on there?
I think for this summer, we're pretty well set. Again, we'll continue to work on Hannibal Park. We had the naming rights fundraiser, and so that's going to help as we continue the master plan there and developing Hannibal Park, into I think it's become a really good softball complex, and we'll continue to improve that. I think the West Street ball fields, we continue to do little things as we can, and keep that in really good shape as well.
Some of the bigger things, so they have to be kind of put on hold when you do get into the summer season, because you'll see traffic on a daily basis, and don't really want to interfere with things that are already going on.
That does shorten that construction and remodel period of time to, again, a lot of things go into the fall. And so we have to be real careful of how we can get all that done.
Okay. One note that I understand the street department is working on, I think, a part of Industrial Road, just a real short area, and there's a temporary closure there, and I think that is supposed to be reopened tomorrow.
If I'm not mistaken, it is, and it's probably again some concrete work or patchwork on Industrial Row. Again, I would tell you that our department heads do a great job, and sometimes when these questions come up, I may or may not know the answer because, quite honestly, I believe the council and myself do what we should be doing, and that is oversight, and we let the management take place with our department heads that do a good job.
Well, there have been some traffic cones up in some areas periodically, like on the major highways and streets for work to be done, but also not from the city side necessarily, but we've seen occasionally some big cranes up, maybe blocking some areas for a little while. You see some work on like communication building, churches, and things like that as well.
That is correct, and one of the things that people may or may not know, when you decide, let's say an air conditioner goes out on the top of a building and we have to put a crane on the street for maybe Market Street, let's put that way. It does have to be permitted. So you do have to go to the city office, get a permit for that. And I don't think there's any charge for that permit, but again, it helps us know when that crane's going to be there, what road might be impacted and shut down, and the police department then can be aware of what they need to do from a traffic standpoint. So it's, it does take a little bit that you have to go through some paperwork to shut down a lane, but again, it's really just so that we can protect all the constituents of the city.
I think the only one recently where I think the short block had to be shut completely was the one by I think Windstream or in that area. I think
it might have been,
doing some work over the top, and that street had to be closed. But I think that was for a day maybe.
Right, and that adds another complication because that's a state highway.
Yeah.
And so not only do you have to worry about the city, but you also have to get permission from the state. Just like quite honestly, we passed the resolution to have the Homestead parade, and so we have to get permission to shut down, that particular highway from the state as well.
A lot of ministerial actions that you take place usually on the consent agenda of the council, but there's a pile of them every year.
There really is, and when you think about it, at the end of the day, that's a lot of the things that it's important. It needs to get done, and one of the reasons you'll find it on the consent agenda, though, is because it really turns out to be routine but necessary.
Yeah. All right. Back to conclude Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. We're finishing up Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. A few things to touch on here before we wrap up. Saw the notice on the city's website, Facebook, that a little bit of a problem, I think, over the past weekend with somebody apparently dumping animal waste in a cardboard recycling container next to the municipal auditorium, or at least that's what was suspected of doing. That's a no-no, of course, but any word on finding out responsibility there or not?
At this point in time, I don't know much about it other than it did happen, and I think it's just important to note that we have the recycles bins there for a reason, and if it's cardboard, it's cardboard. If you put anything foreign into that, it actually will then eliminate being able to use that cardboard for recycling. And at the end of the day, the only choice that we have is take it out to the landfill. And so it kind of defeats the purpose of recycling when people don't necessarily put the right things in there and mix it together. Because once it's mixed in there, it does contaminate, and sometimes I know that people wonder why maybe a load goes to the city dump when we have recycling, and a lot of that is because it gets contaminated.
Takes away from potential recycling, environmental for everybody if somebody does the wrong thing.
Exactly.
So, all right. It is graduation Sunday at Beatrice High School. I know the police department always helps out with traffic control afterward because, boy, does that lot become busy out there. It's busy lots of times anyway, but
yes,
it's a big event. It's for families and the students, and one of those things you look back at, and you were in education at the college level. You know what it's all about, graduation.
It's it's the capstone to the seniors for 13 years of of going to school, and it's just a really neat event. And I guess I would say congratulations not only to the Beatrice seniors, but the other area school seniors, of folks that are graduating. And yeah, I mean, it's one of the least things we can do is try to control traffic, particularly when it gets over, because you got everybody who wants to get to their graduation parties, and that's important as well, because it is a great accomplishment. And I know now there's a number of seniors that are saying, well, I wonder what my next step is. Some of them got it figured out. Some of them say, well, I'm still thinking about it. But it's a great thing to celebrate every May.
Yeah. I think about how much I kind of was concerned about what am I going to do, and now 45 years later I'm going, wow, I'm glad this is coming to a close here eventually. So well, the point being, you got plenty of time.
You do have plenty of time, and I'm one of the people that went back to my hometown because my dad had a clothing store and spent some 10 quality years there, but retail probably wasn't where I wanted to be. And long story short, my mom wanted me in education, and the next thing I know, I'm a teacher at Southeast Community College, and that started a 30-year history there. So, I guess I've had 2 jobs.
Yep. Then you're capping it all off by being a mayor. You probably never thought that was going to take place.
That was not on my radar screen, I will say that. But again, I think it's important to give back.
Yep. All right. Quick 13th Street update. How's the project? I know it got interrupted by some rain maybe a little bit. But, how's it going?
I think most of the intersections are getting done. The one lane, of course, on the west side is done, and I think they have all the concrete out on the east side. So I think now if we can get a little bit of dry weather, I think they'll be ready to roll, and I think they're doing a good job.
Yep. Have some sunny days through at least Saturday. I don't know about Sunday. That looks a little bit iffy, but it's just what you put up with during spring.
That is right.
Construction. City council meeting coming up on Monday night, but prior to that, I think starting at 6, you'll have a work session.
We will.
What will you be covering in that?
Well, the major topic, I believe, will be, I think the Dempster Committee wants to talk a little bit about what they found out and maybe talk about what to consider for the next steps of Dempster. Now, the big building that everybody sees, we haven't really quite bought it yet because we're trying. It's one of those things that take a little bit of time. Most of the other parcels, I believe, we do own. Got a couple buildings in the back that at some point in time can come down, but is that the right thing to do, because we need to figure out a couple of grant opportunities that we might have, and we really want to make sure that we do, what I would say, be fiscally responsible. And so I think the committee has a couple of ideas to talk through, and I'm sure the rest of the council will have some input as what our next steps are. But again, I think the good news is that not only the committee but the city council and myself and the city administration are still moving forward to figure out when that building can come down. And it's just a long process.
Yeah. The one building was taken down earlier. This calendar year, do you anticipate any other demolition or not?
Again, I think we need to take a look at our budget and see where we are from a financial standpoint and what we budgeted for this year. I think there was some demo money budgeted, but I don't know how much. And so we'll have to take a look at all of that.
Okay.
So it's a good time to talk about it.
Yeah. Anything else as far as the work session?
I believe that the downtown committee will give maybe a quick update on a few things that they've been working on.
Some of that is kind of, you're waiting for, are there sources of support? And we're talking major sources of support, because some of the things you would like to do, I know, regarding Court Street corridor and things like that, making the downtown maybe a little bit more pedestrian friendly than it is, those kind of take a little bit of time, I think.
They do take time, and trying to find grants to do it also takes time. And I know we have one. The RAISE grant is back in Washington in some committee as we speak, and I believe that we'll know the outcome of that June 30, and that will tell us a lot about what maybe our next steps are too. Because that's just, if you look at a big project, if you can't find help for that project, it's just pretty hard to get it done.
Okay. The short block on Ella that goes toward the museum, where it's brick, and they're going to be doing something with that to maybe spruce that up a little bit. Where's that at right now? I
think still in the design stage, and it's one of those projects that we want to get done by the end of the fiscal year, because we're working on that. We have a $400,000 grant for that, and it's really going to be kind of showcasing what we can do to make the downtown more pedestrian friendly. And so I can tell you we learned a lesson on Fifth Street. We're not going to do that same thing there, but we are going to start gradually putting some improvements in that will give at least a look at what pedestrian friendly areas can be.
All right, Mayor, we'll see you Monday night.
Sounds good.